What's going on, everybody? So this is going to be my review on the Trick or Treat Studios Good Guy doll. I was actually one of the backers of the Kickstarter campaign, and this specific doll is numbered at 1309. I'll be going over every single detail to the best of my ability, diving into pros and cons, as well as answering a lot of frequently asked questions that have been floating around lately. So stay tuned, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so let's begin with the hair. I truly believe that Trick or Treat Studios did a perfect job on the hair. The length is just right, in my opinion. One controversial aspect that's going around lately, especially with the dolls that people have been posting, is that the hair is too short. Some people even say that it's too long, and others throw out the the notion that it looks like Chucky's a soccer mom. But like I said, in my opinion, I really believe that they did an excellent job on the hair. Color is fantastic. I actually thought it was going to be a bit darker, but after watching a bit of Child's Play 1 and 2 a little earlier, it's just great. So speaking of the hair, one frequently asked question is the hair punched, glued, or is it a wig? And I would say that it's a mixture of all of those. So as you can see here, there is a bit of fabric that houses the hair, and the outer edges of the head, especially on the top side of the skull, has that material surrounding it, and that part is glued on. As you can see right there, that's glued on, but the interior of the hair is actually punched. So it's a mixture of both. One other thing that people have been asking about is the style of the hair. And as I said, some people think it's too long or it's too short, and the style doesn't really look all that good. And is it able to be manipulated? And the answer is yes. If you were to move the hair, you're able to style it and manipulate it the way you want. Because in the Child's Play movies, when Chucky's killing or he's getting rattled around, the hair just goes all over the place and it gives it that messy look. But if you were to run a comb through it, take it to a stylist, I definitely think you can fix it. The hair, in my opinion, is not really that much of a deal breaker. I like it just the way it is. I think Trick or Treat Studios did a good job. But yeah, I think that about does it for the hair. Now we move on to the face. I'll give you a real close-up of this. Let's see if it'll focus. There we go. Love the eyebrows and eyelashes. Spot on, in my opinion. The freckles. I like how they're nice and bold. It's kind of reminiscent of Child's Play 2. The nose and mouth, little chin, of course the neck. Give you guys more angles. Sorry for the low production value. Hopefully this does it justice a bit. And we'll move on to a frequently asked question, and it's about the eyes. Are they painted on? Are they full eyeballs? Are they inserts? What is it made out of? Etc., etc. And I will say that based on some sources, the eyes are actually inserts. So I guess to my knowledge, they're half eyeballs that are secured in the skull. And the pupils, I guess you would call it the iris themselves, are actually made of what I believe is a sort of hard plastic or plexiglass. So it is definitely not painted on, which is good. And I'm sure you can kind of see how the eyes are embedded into the face, which is really cool. Really love that detail. And of course, I guess they call it the starburst. Some people were really focused and concerned if Chucky or this good guy doll would have the starburst aesthetic, and it definitely has it. And let's see, I think for the shape of the face, I think they really nailed it as well. Some people consider it a little bit chubbier than normal. I've heard people say that the neck is too long, but I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Very good job, Trick or Treat Studios. So I think that's about it for the head. Now we'll move on to the overalls, which is another controversial topic. Let's begin with the pocket. In my opinion, I've gotten a pretty good copy or a pretty good variation of this good guy doll considering the other ones out there, which is unfortunate. And what I mean by that is two things. If you were to look at the pocket and the good guy's text, you'll notice that with some of the dolls, the pocket is lowered slightly, maybe about like a centimeter or two, which kind of negates the entire authenticity of everything or the accuracy. But mine is very reminiscent of Child's Play 1. It's got that bit of space in between it. And to my knowledge, in Child's Play 2, the pocket is raised even higher, but some of them are lower, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way things go. Next, if you hadn't noticed already, the good guy's text is ever so slightly lower as well, but to me it's not that much of a deal breaker. I could kind of care less. But you'll see with other good guy dolls that Trick or Treat Studios has released, the good guy's text is substantially low. Like the G is pretty much touching the corner, and some have reported and pictured that the S is going underneath the stitching, which is another unfortunate case, but that's just the way things go. The way I kind of decipher it is when you have something completely mass-produced, everything is constructed by machines, and so there are going to be the very few that will fall by the wayside. I guess I kind of got one of them, but I like it. It's not too bad. I mean, it could have been raised just a little bit, but that is one thing to keep in mind. So the two details, and I guess the two details that are pretty controversial at this point, is the position of the pocket and the position of the good guy's text. But I'm happy with it. I don't really care. So let's see. The buttons are actually not able to, I guess, go through the overalls and detach, if you will, or detach from the overalls. They are stitched on, which is cool. Very simple, to the point. Now, in this area specifically, the pictures like the baseball bat and the hat, the fireman gear and all that is placed absolutely perfect, as you would see on Child's Play 1. This part, wow, they just nailed. If you were to watch the movie or look at pictures, it is just perfect. Let's move on to the rest of the overalls. As you can tell, it kind of goes baggy at this point. Get you more of a look on the sides. Later in this video, I will be turning the doll around and sitting it down, so stay tuned for that. A lot more coming. So there's a look at the overalls. And one thing I wanted to mention as well, one frequently asked question is, are the overalls similar to the sideshow variation, the Seed of Chucky doll, where everything is Velcro? And the answer is actually no. There is absolutely no Velcro on the parts that you would see on the sideshow doll. So for example, I believe, if I remember correctly, there was Velcro right here, so you can disassemble the overalls. On the interior of the arms, there was also Velcro. And that kind of threw everything off, but this doll does not have that whatsoever. It does have Velcro in the back, which I'll be showing you later, but it's cool. It's a full-fledged outfit that is completely fitting and accurate. So let's move on to the shoes and cuffs. So here is another hidden gem, I guess. If you were to look at the cuffs, as I'm showing you here, there's actually a ton of extra fabric that I had to fold in. If I were to unflap the cuffs, the entire thing would go up to about here. So essentially you'd have a double cuff or an extra large cuff. Not sure exactly why they did that. I guess in my opinion, if I were to decipher it, maybe if you receive a doll that eventually gets damaged or something, you can cut that portion off and you can use the remaining fabric. But yeah, there is a substantial amount of extra fabric in there. That's one thing to note. It's a hidden gem. Some people might not like it, but I think it's kind of cool. It gives it some uniqueness. And let's go on to the shoes. So as you can see, the color is just perfect. I wanted to mention too that on the Sideshow doll specifically, on the white areas, on nearly every single one that I've seen, including the two that I used to own, had so many blemishes on, I guess you would call it the stripe or the bottom portion of the shoe. The paint was chipping off and the color was just faded like right out of the box, but this is just perfect. No blemish, no flaws whatsoever. Now moving on to the laces. There's good guys on the laces, as it should be, on either side. I just noticed this just now, but I think it's kind of cool how it says good and it's right side up, and this one is upside down. I guess that's kind of cool. All right, so let me readjust everything. And here is another controversial question about this little guy here. Are there socks? The answer is yes. I won't really show all of them because I don't really want to mess up the adjustments that I have just made, but there are socks, and they are stretchy socks, and they're able to be manipulated and stretched out, so that's really cool. Let's see. Now we'll move on to, I guess I forgot the hands and the shirt. This is kind of out of order. I'm sorry, but I'm really excited, so pardon me. The shirt, I'm really surprised because the shirt is actually made with real knitted textiles in comparison to a lot of the dolls out there that have just a plain shirt with a striped print on them, whereas this is just impeccable. They did a fantastic job on the overall aesthetic and construction. You got the cuffs on either side, and let's move on to the hands. It's kind of squeaky there. The hands are posable. I really like how they added that very, very minute detail, but if you were to look at the actual film, Chucky's hand kind of goes like this, and his index finger is extended ever so slightly. The way they captured that is awesome. You can totally tell that is completely visible. Now, one frequently asked question that is asked, and I'm really surprised that it is do the fingers move? Are they bendable? Are they posable? And the answer is no. If you were to look at any of the Child's Play movies when Chucky is not alive, I guess, or if Chucky hasn't turned into that serial killer and it's just the doll, or he's dormant and hiding, the fingers never move. They're never posable at all. So hopefully that answers your question. I'll give you kind of a look at how the fingers move. They're really, really rigid and sturdy. So even if you wanted to kind of emulate that signature middle finger that Chucky does, it's impossible. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's move on to another kind of gripe that I have, but could be a blessing in disguise, just depending on how you look at it. So this doll, and excuse my French, was packaged like fucking crazy. If you buy one of these Good Guy dolls and you go to unbox it, it is just almost physically impossible to unbox, specifically because it was secured in such a crazy way, for lack of a better word. And so while that is good, while you will have a very protected doll, the downside is there was a plastic strip or a plastic flat piece that went over the chest, and there were also wires that encapsulated the entire doll. So the negative side is that if I were to go really, really close, you could see this line that goes right across. And you could see it a bit right here. I believe if I were to manipulate and move the fabric a little bit, it'll eventually go away in time. But that is something to take note. Also, the wires that were wrapped around the cuffs left these marks. So take it as you will. Could be a blessing in disguise. Could be a good thing because your dolls are going to be well protected. But they do leave some marks. So in short, this doll is packaged perfectly. All right, so let's see. I think I've gone over everything. I'm not sure if I'm really forgetting anything. Oh yes, I definitely am. Let's talk about the body and the movement. So let's start off with the head. Sorry if anything is shaky or kind of out of order because I'm using one hand. One commonly asked question is, does the head swivel? And it does. I'm just not able to do it right now, but you can emulate that scene. It's in Bride of Chucky, but you can emulate that scene where his head completely turns around in 360 degrees or 180 degrees. You can definitely do that. As for the other movement, I've been showing you the hands. They can turn around and rotate completely. Go to the other one. Not that you really need to see it, but I'm just going to kind of demonstrate it to you. And I guess the most important part is the body itself and what it is made out of. It is made out of a foam material that I would consider to be very much similar to a memory foam pillow. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's very soft yet rigid at the same time. I'm not sure if I can get you to see this, but that is what it looks like. Let me get this in focus really quick. There we go. Try to do this to the best of my ability. If you can see the foam, if you press it, it'll kind of retain its shape. Like I said, very, very similar to, oh, and there goes a piece right there. Oh well, not a deal breaker. Let's see, is there anything broken? We're good. There's bound to be some excess. But yeah, there is a good amount of foam that encapsulates the entire body. So like I showed you, it is right at the wrists on each side, right below the neck, the entire torso, all the way down to the legs and the feet, which you can't really see right now, but the feet are exactly the same as the hands, and the feet also move as well. Let's see. Now, as for the movement and the interior of the doll itself, I forgot exactly what it's called, but the skeletal portion of the doll on the inside is superposable. It's got so many different joints, and it is the exact material that people use in hip replacements and things like that. So it is built to last and very posable. So I know you're like, dude, come on, move the doll. Like, let's see some poses. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. you can see that it'll retain its shape and it'll stay exactly the way you put it. And it's kind of cool, oops, because you can even bend at the forearm, which is not really anatomically correct, but you can move it in several different spots. So the way I see it and the way I feel it, I guess, no pun intended, is that there are, gosh, this is gonna sound so dirty, but there are balls within the body itself. If you've seen pictures of just the skeletal system itself, you'll know what I'm talking about. But there's, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 balls that are within the arm, and can't really feel it on the legs, but it's the same thing on the leg as well. So each of those balls, each of those points can bend, and you can actually maneuver it any way that you want. So let's see, let's give it an interesting pose. So you can do something like that. You can really do anything that you imagine, which is really cool. So let's, now he's zombie Chucky. All right, so I think that about does it for the entirety of the front of the doll. If I miss anything, be sure to ask me some questions. But let's see what he looks like in a sitting position. All right, so this is what he looks like in a sitting position. Let's adjust the feet here. I think that's one of my other gripes, is even though you can twist it, the memory foam, not the memory foam, I keep calling it memory foam, but the foam interior, considering it's very much conjoined to the joints themselves, it kind of retains its shape and it kind of goes back. So it is pretty difficult to get the shape that you want, but I kind of got it. Takes a while. But yeah, this is what he looks like in a sitting position. Kind of looks like Chucky's trying to start some shit. As if he's about to do something crazy. But anyway, one thing that you can't see when the doll is standing up are the bottoms of the feet. So let's go into that really quick. They absolutely nailed it with each of the designs, the positions of them. Give you a close look at that. See if it'll focus here. Now I'm going to compare the Sideshow doll once again. The shoes on that, while it was a good doll overall, the shoes were horrendous. Everything about it just fell apart. The paint chipped off and everything, but this is just, wow. Spot on and beautiful. Give you another look at it. Like how these tools and hats protrude pretty far out from the shoe. That is one aspect that I really dig. I think that's about it for the shoes. Chucky did it. And yeah, I think another thing that I wanted to talk about, and it is gonna become kind of controversial probably because of this video, so I'm very sorry to Trick or Treat Studios or anybody inquiring about this doll, but it is actually kind of difficult to sit this doll down, and given the fact that I am doing it one-handed, I won't be able to really demonstrate. But if you were to see the way it's positioned, I think you just saw that his body started to tip over and slouch over. And that's mainly because of the memory foam. I keep on saying memory foam. I just love that word. The memory foam on the inside. See, I keep saying it again. The foam on the inside is so, I guess, soft and sturdy at the same time, and retains its shape and goes back to its original shape, that it's very difficult for Chucky to sit up. So, for example, I guess I could do it one-handed. So I'm going to push his body forward like this. And as you can see, if I let go, he will sit, but he starts to move backward, which is kind of unfortunate. And I guess I'm just going to do this with my foot here. And, you know, the joints are moving as well. Even if I spread his legs out, he still tips over. Even if I were to spread his legs like toward the groin area, it still tips over. So that is one thing. I'm doing this with my feet. Wow. Should be a contortionist or something. But anyway, that is my subtle gripe. It is pretty difficult for him to kind of sit upright without the support of a wall. But I guess take it or leave it. Take it with a grain of salt. You decide. But yeah, I just kind of wish that he could sit without the extra support. And I think that about does it for everything on the front and the interior and the movement and everything. So how about we move to the back? Okay, so before I go into the back section details, you'll notice that I have my hand on his back, and that's because if I let go, he will fall over. So I'll use my foot as an anchor, and if I let him go, he just falls over. So that further indicates that it really does take a bit of force and bending over for him to actually sit. And even then you can start to see him moving back, and that's the foam acting and retaining its shape. And see, there he goes, he's falling over. So really, in order for you to get him to sit without the support of a wall is by having him slouch over as if he's sick or something. Kind of looks a bit funny, but yeah, that is the only way, unfortunately. So let's move him back into a more tolerable position. The back of the overalls is crossed, which a lot of people were concerned about whether the security of the straps would be crossed or whether they'd be side to side. And I mean, you can do it from side to side because there are Velcro, but the way it should be is crossed, in my opinion, or to my knowledge. That's really cool. As I said, there are Velcro pieces. Like, damn, I can't even get this thing to sit up. I really have to hunch him over. But there's the Velcro right there. And the elastic band that houses everything. It's got a very good amount of elasticity to it and stretch. So yeah, and then also the back. Let's look at the back of the shirt. If you had followed earlier, I told you that the only area that Velcro exists is in the back of the doll. There's none whatsoever in the front or on the sides like the other dolls. There's Velcro running all along the back of the shirt. Obviously, both of the straps on the outer portion of the overalls. And if you can see right there, there's actually a button that secures the collar area. And another controversial question. Is there a battery pack, or is there an open section to put batteries in? The answer is no. And I can prove that not by undoing everything, but by pushing. There's absolutely no section that houses a battery compartment. So, might be a deal breaker for some, but to me it doesn't even matter. I absolutely love it anyway. Just kind of sucks how it just keeps on falling. But anyway, let's move on to the next section of this video. Okay, so we're nearing the ending portion of the video, and I thought I could kind of demonstrate other ways that you can manipulate this doll. And also something that I forgot was demonstrating exactly how the legs move. And similar to the arms, there are several ball joints on the interior of the foam so that you can manipulate and form the limbs or the appendages as you see fit. So it's not, like I said, an anatomically correct by any sense, because you can move the joints in so many different ways to a point where Chucky looks extremely contorted. But this is just one example of what you can do. This is probably the funniest position that you'll ever see a Chucky doll. Maybe. But it appears that it appears that he's about to do a backflip of some sort. Very weird, Charles. One question that's floating around out there: is Chucky heavy, or is this good guy doll heavy? And I will say that he is on the heavier side, and that's specifically due to the skeletal system and foam that encapsulates the entire doll. So for example, if you were to compare this one to the Medicom variations, Sideshow doll, or those gargantuan Dream Rush dolls, those don't really have any points of movement, or really many points of movement. Whereas with this doll, considering there are so many ball joints, you can contort Chucky to no end. So there is way more movement. And with the other dolls, the only points of movement where you can bend or swivel is the wrists, the neck, shoulders, hips, and feet. But like I said, with this doll, there are so many different areas of movement. And with that said, it makes it kind of heavier. There's just more substance to it. And I call it a skeletal system because it kind of is a skeleton. So there's an interior portion rather than kind of a solid or hollow bodied doll that you would normally find with the others. So hopefully that answers the frequently asked question. Another one is the price. This is probably the most asked question, and people have been fighting and arguing so much lately about the price of this doll. And I will say that he is worth every penny. Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, there are a couple flaws, like, the good guy's text being a little bit lower and him not being able to sit upright, but you will not get a more accurate doll than this in terms of mass-produced dolls. You can, of course, get custom dolls to your liking for thousands, or you can get this. I believe it's just absolutely perfect. Trick or Treat Studios and my buddy Garrett Zima did a fantastic job. I mean, you've been seeing this video the entire time, but you can just see how impeccable all of the details are. It really does capture the essence of Chucky. So if you are on the fence, or even if you are on the negative side and complaining that this doll is way too expensive and it's a ripoff or something like that, just factor in all the details. Factor in all of the things that make this doll unique and make it the hottest thing that is being talked about nowadays. The eyes, how they're not painted, they're inserts. The face is so accurate. The hair, you can manipulate it any way that you want. The overalls, and especially the designs on the overalls, are just perfect. You're not going to get a striped shirt that is just printed. There's actually textiles on it. The color scheme, how there's the extra material on the cuffs like I mentioned earlier, the shoes, and how there's no blemishes on the lines or on the sides or anything like that, the bottoms of the shoes, the foam, the skeletal system, the points of movement. I mean, right there, if you're still watching right now, you kind of owe it to yourself to get one of these rather than one of the Medicom dolls or even the Dream Rush variations. Unless you get a custom doll for thousands of dollars, it doesn't really get much better than this. So the answer to, is it worth it? Absolutely. And that's pretty much all I can say about that. This is one fantastic piece, and just get one. They're still available, and you never know, these might sell out one day, or they might even become discontinued. So I'd act fast if I were you. And let's see. One other question too is, do the dolls vary? You know, some people are heavily discussing that, considering this is a mass-produced piece, that there will be subtle variations or even crazy variations and differences. And as of the doll that I have and what I've seen out there, the only real thing I can point out is basically a few. One is the hair. The hair will obviously vary because it's just so unique. There are so many strands that none are really going to look the same. Some will look longer, some will look shorter, some will have one kind of a look versus another. It just really depends. So I think the hair will obviously vary from doll to doll. Another thing that I've noticed is the eyes. Some of the eyes in, some of the other dolls show a lot more white, especially around this section. There's a lot more white. Some of them are a bit closed a little bit from what I noticed. Maybe it's just the angle, could be wrong, but that's one subtle detail. I think maybe, just maybe, the freckles could be lighter or darker from doll to doll. That's another one. This one is just based on my knowledge of mass-produced items, is that maybe the overalls could be just a slight shade lighter or darker based on which one that you get. I don't think there's really going to be much differences or variations on the cuffs. You will see that bit of extra fabric. I think the shoes will remain the same. Let's see, the skin tone, I think that's one thing that always differs in my opinion as far as mass-produced products go. And I bring that up because I've had 2 of the Sideshow Seed of Chucky dolls, and the skin tones were completely different. Even the grin on his face, that was different too. The teeth were a different color, so they were all unique in their own way. And let's see, what can I think of that could be? Oh yeah, also the good guys symbol or the text. I almost guarantee, and I could be wrong, but every single one will be different as far as the position of them. They will all vary in some sort of way. Some will be centered, some will be high, some will be low. The pocket as well, I believe mine is perfect, but there are some out there where the pocket is a little bit low, etc., etc. But I think that is about it. Those are all the variations I can think of. I mean, if you can think of others, please let me know. But yeah, I think for my closing remarks and my final testimonial is that this doll is fucking dope. I absolutely love it. I've been waiting since May to get him, and it was a $500 well spent. I did have my worries like many others, but man, it just, I mean, if you've been watching this entire time, you probably would agree that this captures Chucky's essence. Like, you can truly feel that Charles Lee Ray is here. I mean, even if I go like underneath at a different angle, it just has that sinister and ominous vibe to it. It really does look like it's going to come to life, and you can't really get any better than that. And I won't go over every single thing like I did earlier, but you know, just a few key points: the movement, the eyes, the skin tone, the shoes and how they're unscathed. Just everything is absolutely perfect. I don't see how people could say that this is not worth the money or that they can get better somewhere else. This is so perfect, and I absolutely love it. These do run at around $500. Maybe you can get one for cheaper elsewhere, but that is the basic price that is out there. It's $500. To some people that seems like a lot, but trust me, invest in this doll, and I guarantee if you are a diehard Chucky fan, or even just a regular Chucky fan in general, you will appreciate this doll. Best freaking doll as far as mass produced on the market by far. Does So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I know this has been a long video. If you've stuck with me this entire time, I really appreciate it. Hope you've learned some things. And if you have any further questions, let me know. Thanks again.